Okay, it looks like we are live. Mr. Inman, can you allow screen sharing also from participants?
Yes.
So welcome everybody to the special board meeting for the Académie Lafayette board. The purpose of tonight's meeting is just to hear from our potential charter sponsors. So I think we just need to approve the agenda for tonight that everybody got by email, but you can also see up on the screen. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. This is Harriet.
Second.
Second, Michelle.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right. I assume even though we don't have a quorum, we can officially approve the agenda. So we will hear from our three potential charter sponsors tonight. We'll start with the commission, then hear from St. Louis University, and finally Kansas City Public Schools. So Robin, I will go ahead and pass it over to you. We appreciate you being here tonight.
I'm delighted. Thank you so much. Let me go ahead and do the screen sharing thing here. I still need to get permission for that.
I just allowed.
Oh, there it is. Perfect. We were cross currents there. All right. So I'll go ahead and get us started here. So thank you so much for allowing us to introduce to you the Missouri Charter Public School Commission. So the commission is the state's only sole purpose sponsor of charter public schools. We are in the charter school business, and that is all we do. Our interest is very much what your interest is. We're public like you, we're independent like you, and we care about quality. Our values are enshrined in our policies as a commission. We first start through the statute. We were established in 2011, went into effect in 2012, and we actually opened our doors in 2015, and we sponsored our very first school in 2016. We started with the statutes to establish our values, and every member of our commission, board of citizens that are appointed by the governor with confirmation by the Senate, are by statute committed to charter public schools. But beyond that, they also wanted to make sure that they were really clear about what it means to be the commission. We are an independent public agency. We are committed to quality. We are committed to the very best business practices. We want to remain lean. We're not interested in starting up a large state agency. We want to stay focused on the work that we're doing. And that work is based in the principles and standards of the National Association of Charter School Authorizers. And that is the accountability for charter public schools. And its very equal twin, the autonomy of the schools to operate independently. And then the thing that matters to all of us, making sure that children have access to quality schools. And our first customer, like you, are the children. Our students are number one for us, and we serve students through existing charter schools that transfer to us, through educators who would like to start a brand new charter school in any location that they're interested in that's eligible in the state of Missouri. And we also work with communities that are interested in attracting a charter school to their community. As a matter of fact, that's our very first school with Citizens of the World, which was a parent-led engagement that eventually selected the Citizens of the World, and then we sponsored them in 2015. Our transfer process, which I think is probably the thing to sort of hit the highlights, because that's the experience that you would have if you came to the commission. On the 17th of May, you were notified by the University of Central Missouri that they were no longer going to be sponsoring charter public schools at the end of this fiscal year, which is June 30 of 22. 2 days later, the commission met, and our commission took a vote, and we agreed to sponsor the entire portfolio. And that's a practice of ours. We believe that we're the backstop. We are actually established to be the backstop for schools who are sponsored by sponsors that become no longer eligible. In this case, your sponsor has made a choice to exit the field. And that leaves you with the responsibility of finding a new sponsor. And that's the process that we're going through right now. So we've already voted. So there's no action that needs to take place on our side. We're now to the place where the board needs to decide who its sponsor is. And if you vote, we would ask that that would be a decision that the board makes in public session. You provide us with a letter, and that letter, along with our letter, is sent to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education with a date in which you would like that transfer to be effective. And then we accept your school as is. The current contract that you have with the University of Central Missouri is the contract we would honor. If you wish to amend it, that's certainly something that we're open with. But this is not a decision, this situation isn't a decision that you sought. This is a decision that you need to make sure that your school is secure in the future. And so we really see no reason that we should have any more impact on your school, any concerns that you would have about your plans or your contract. At this point, we take all of the schools as they are. If you transfer to us, then we'll spend about 90 days getting all of the documents from your current sponsor and making sure that we have everything that shows the evidence of your compliance with the statutes, and making sure that we have all of your founding documents and everything that you need, we would need in order to make sure that we're doing all the accountability work on our end. At the same time, our process includes a school quality review. We'll engage an external evaluator. Typically, it's been SchoolWorks. It's also been Insignia Partners, the two vendors that we've been using lately. Our school quality review is based in research. It's posted on our website. Frankly, anyone can use it at any time, and we like being able to give out our best practices to anyone. It's about a $25,000 value. We'll pay for that. We'll present that to you as a board after it's completed, and then we can talk about it as a way in which we can frame our relationship and what you see and what we see, and we can come together on that. And then I think it, for most schools, has really served for one, is a validation, the strategies and things that you thought you were doing, how well you're doing them, and what kind of impact that you're having. It also shows some gaps. And for most schools, they are the gaps that they've recognized, or maybe they frame the gaps in a little better way that gave that school an opportunity to really address them. But in either way, that's part of our process, so that we are both understand where we sit. So that's the transfer process. Let me talk a little bit quickly about the commission's over its compliance and monitoring work. As I said, we base our work first, and it's anchored in the National Association of Charter School Authorizers framework on principles and standards. We also then look at statute, which is really the foundation of all compliance work in Missouri around charter schools, and then our values and our operating plan. And together that became our performance framework. Those are the things around accountability that we will track on an annual basis for every school. And we really keep those to the areas that are the most, that are required by law and that are the most important. We try not to add anything into that framework that exceeds the scope of the school. We care very much about the autonomy, and we want to stay narrow and focus on the things that are in law or that are in the contract that we sign. So that's the other thing that we add. And so we do actually treat each of our schools as unique. We don't have one contract set of performance goals for every school. We work with the board to determine what are the best goals for that school for this term, based on the goals and interests of what the school is trying to produce and the maturity of the school. A brand new school will have a different set of goals than a school that's on its second 10-year charter. We monitor the school by collecting evidence based on what you're already doing. We spend an enormous amount of time making sure that we're not bothering the school to create something, or the board to create something just for monitoring and compliance. So we detail in our performance framework all of the places in which we will gather that evidence and then how we will measure it. We ask the department for feedback as well, because they're your funder, and we also treat them as one of the many sources of data. That's all put together into an annual report that shows how the school's performing on academics, operations, governance, the learning environment, and finance. That report tells you as a board whether you're headed toward renewal or away from renewal. It gives confidence to parents and funders and community members that this school is in compliance with all of the regulatory and statutory areas, as well as what the board said are its performance measures. I sent, by the way, I sent to your board a copy of the statute, a copy of UA's annual report so you can see it, and you can actually see all the details about what measures we use. And our policies around sponsorship, you can see that we're both really clear too about how we make decisions. So we use the summation, the comprehensive body of evidence, we use the summation of your reports, the comprehensive body of data, and then we have a public meeting about it. All of our decisions are made in the public, and we also engage the public. We really want to make sure that the public has an opportunity to talk to us before we make our decision on sponsorship. And we do that when we sponsor a school and when we renew a school. In a case of a transfer that's not in the condition in which you're transferring, we would also hold a public hearing for that, and then in closure. Finally, the overall sponsorship program. In your case, you're an existing school, so it really starts at the monitoring side. But for a new school, it would be starting through the letter of intent and working through the entire cycle, and then getting to renewal, and then we would start the application process all over again. And it just details what I had said before. These are the current schools. We're currently sponsoring 15 schools in 3 school districts in the state of Missouri, and I would be delighted to have to be a partner with you with making sure that Académie Lafayette is getting all of the supports and oversight it needs to continue its great work in Kansas City. So with that very quick introduction of the commission, I thought maybe we could have a conversation.
And so before we sort of open it up to see what questions people are curious about, could you speak to what it looks like for your current schools to partner with them? So you do a very clear accountability audit. There are issues that they're struggling with. Talk about how you support schools where they are encountering issues or you sort of see an issue come up.
Sure. The first is being really clear, honest, direct, and current with all information. And so we really make sure that schools know where they stand. If we are contacted by a school or if we see something that's happening at the school, we reach out, and our relationship is with the board, Beth. And so the contract is between the commission and the board of the charter school. And so we work directly with the governing board. All of our conversations, our questions, inquiries, we'll focus with the board first. Obviously, the day-to-day operations of any organization is done by the terrific staff. And so we work with whoever the staff assigns us to work with to make sure that we gather that information. So depending on what the situation is, we are of counsel, but we are not a organization that's going to direct you on what you should do unless it is a compliance or legal related issue. You have to post your meetings because the Sunshine Law requires it, and here's the Sunshine Law. In that case, we could actually, if I just take that for a moment as an example, we would work with you about making sure that you had all the information you need to comply with it. Is there a reason why you're not posting your meetings? Or, oh, you didn't know, did you need board training? Can we put you in touch with somebody? But what we won't do is tell you that you have to use this vendor or our vendor. We'll work with you to identify local supports, or we'll also pair you with others that are doing work well and say, oh, this school could be of help to you in this. When it's mechanical and easy compliance related stuff like the Sunshine Law, we actually can take you through the steps. And we often, when we see that there are like some hiccups with a lot of schools, we'll actually provide a memo and detail people how to close a meeting, for example, is one of those little tricky things. And so we want to make sure that schools know how to do it, and that we would inform that school and all of our schools, hey, here's how you close a meeting to stay aligned with the law. What we don't provide is services. We don't provide professional development. We don't come in and do curriculum reviews. We don't come in and make sure figure out how you can build a collaborative around transportation and tell you which transportation services to use. But we can be a good thought partner, and often schools call us to think through about, we're thinking about expanding. This is kind of the situation we're thinking about. Should we go down this road or that road? Should we partner? How do we think about these things? And so our work has really been about strengthening the governance group, the board, to be able to lead the school to make the best decisions possible. So that's how we do our support. It's organizational behavior and governance, along with compliance and regulatory, and being able to be really current, honest, and clear about what we're finding at schools.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Welcome.
I have a few questions. You're Robin. What is your role?
Oh, I am the executive director of the commission.
Okay. And how many people? We have 15 schools. Do you employ one? Do you employ 10?
I have 2 FTEs. Our interest is in actually adding 3 FTEs next year, and our hope is to open an office in Kansas City with at least 2 of those FTEs next year. But what we do use is a lot of contracted service, and we find that being able to use contracted service allows us to stay flexible and really get the right service for the right school. And so we don't have just a small, narrow set of people who have one particular skill set. We actually go and find folks that match the skill set based on what's going on at the school and whatever it is that we need.
And then there is a board you work for.
Yes, ma'am.
How many members are on that board?
There is a 9-member board. It's in statute how they're appointed. They go through a panel. 3 of them are direct appointments by the governor, and the others are appointed through panels submitted to the governor. For example, the Department of Higher Education, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, the Speaker of the House, the Pro Tem of the Senate, the Missouri School Board Association, the Missouri School Charter School Association, all can submit names, and then governor has to pick from that list or reject the entire list. But what the statute says is that each person that is appointed must be a supporter of charter public schools. There are constraints. We can only have 2 people from each congressional district. So we have people throughout the state. You might say, they don't have charter schools in that community. Why are they part of the sponsorship? Well, actually, they're huge advocates for you in all parts of Missouri. And so it's a benefit to be with the commission because that you have a strong statewide voice in support of the quality work that you do.
Okay. And I assume you can find those 9 members on your website.
Right. And everything. So our website, it is chocked full of wonderful information, but I will say it probably could use a little bit of spoofing up because it's mainly a giant file cabinet at this point. But yes, you can find all of a bio on and a picture of each of our appointed members. We do have open seats. We have always had open seats. It's a bit of a conundrum why we can't get all of our appointments, but there's a lot of boards and commissions and a lot of people who want to work on these things. And so it goes through the process.
And one last thing, your annual report, we have to do like an annual report for DESE. Is it on the same lines?
Yeah, and actually we provide that for you.
Okay.
You mentioned you have a few FTEs that are full-time staff, and then you use quite a bit of contracted staff. Can you give me an example of who are the kinds of people that you contract with?
Well, it's for a couple of things. So the first one was we do these external reviews. And so we do annual site visit reviews to help us understand the school on an annual basis. And then we'll bring in an external review team when we're making decisions around renewal. As an example, we want to make sure that we have highly skilled folks, so we have a rubric of the things that we expect. But we also want to make sure that there is a cultural competency and an understanding of the school. So if we were going to say, review and a French immersion school, we would make sure that there was a competency on the review team that had this background. We would do that for a Montessori school or for a no excuses school for people with high school that are career in college. So we really go for making sure that we're matching our contracted service to the schools. That using contracted service allows us to stay nimble like that. Another example would be, we contract for our site visit coordinator. And so we have somebody who helps work with the schools and finding a time that works best for the individual schools for our annual site visit. We don't pop in. Everything is coordinated with the school. We just ask that we don't come on field trip days or map testing days. We make sure that there's plenty of time that's already taken place in the school year for everybody to get set. We usually do those between January and April. And so somebody would coordinate that. A member of my team, myself, or my deputy, or someone that, again, has been contracted by us, and we try to make sure that if we can, to use some local people in St. Louis and Kansas City to be a member of that team. We actually like to think of, we've talked to school leaders too, charter school leaders in Kansas City and St. Louis about being trained as our external evaluators to help work with us, because we think the cross-pollination might be actually a really great professional benefit. And we pay. I don't think this is volunteer time. We would pay. We do pay.
And you were talking about adding 3 FTEs.
Mm-hmm.
Is that in anticipation of kind of this, book of business coming from UCM, or would you be adding in addition to were those 3 FTEs already being hired?
Yeah, they've been part of our plan all along. So the additional, so I have a deputy director of accountability. And again, we really try to stay very lean. We do as much of this work as we can by collecting evidence of work you've already done so that the schools aren't recreating that, right? And so we continue to try to refine that, make sure that we're really sharp and focused on that. The other side, what we'd really like is to have a deputy director for community engagement. We really believe in engaging the community about this work. These are the public schools, and you are a public board, and we're a public board, and we want to make sure that folks have an opportunity to give us some input about how they feel about the school. We have videos of our public hearing on our website, and if you want to hear some beautiful stories of people, alumni and parents and community members and teachers who came to talk about how important these schools are in their community. I think it does a world of business good for all of us to hear some of those things. So the idea would be to have a community engagement deputy director. We also are growing with new school development as well, and we want to make sure that the folks that are trying to start brand new schools actually have community support. And then we want to support Martha and this deputy in having staff to be able to, carry out the work. So that's right now the design.
Thank you.
Right, I know we are just about at 6:30. Any final question from our board members for the commission? As Robin mentioned, you will see in your email just additional documentation that she shared this morning. And the process will be, we'll hear from our charter sponsors today. We will have a discussion as a board at our next regularly scheduled board meeting with a planned vote by December to determine as a board who we want. So we have time to sort of review all of those materials after this, and we'll follow up if any additional questions come from looking through those materials.
Great. I really do hope that you get a chance to visit our website. You can take a look at all the annual reports of all the schools, and you can see all the amendments to the contracts. All their contracts are there. You can take a look also about our online submission has a transparency component to it. And so you can go and see the board agendas and board meeting packets because you want to read some more board minutes. you can go on and see all of the activities that are happening in the schools that we sponsor, including the new schools and renewal public hearings and board interviews as well. So you can really look at our work. It's all out there for you. I would be delighted, and I know the commission, I can speak on behalf of the commission, we really would be honored to have you as part of our portfolio, and I am available if you have any questions. And I really want to thank each and every one of you for doing very, very important work of serving on a board. Having citizen-led public schools is a very important part of what makes our communities and our country work. And you're really helping all of us and all of our communities strengthen this self-governing promise and making sure that kids have access to the American dream. And I'm really grateful that you do that. So thank you for that. And thanks for tonight.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you for your time tonight, Robin.
Have a nice night. Take care, folks.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.
Right, so per the schedule, I think we have St. Louis University up next. I see their team is on. I will let you all introduce yourselves. I don't know who wants to take the lead on your team. Hi, Gary, how are you? Oh, and you are on mute.
Oh, yes, I was trying to make sure my camera was off and my sound was off because I realized we crashed the party of the last folks. So
Nope, you're welcome to listen in. We don't mind at all. So, but it's good to see you all. I will let you all sort of introduce yourselves and talk through what you have to offer as a charter sponsor to our board.
that sounds great. It's great to see you all. And my name is Gary Ritter. I'm the Dean of the School of Education here at St. Louis University. And I'll ask Ryan and Steve to introduce themselves and their role, and then I'll get into the presentation. I presume, Beth, I can share screen if that's okay?
Yes, you should be able to, but if it's not working, let us know.
Great.
Go ahead, Steve.
My name is Steve Sanchez. I'm an associate provost here at SLU, and until about 6 months to a year ago, I oversaw all of our charter sponsorship work here at SLU. I began in 2007 and 2008. But our sponsorship efforts have moved now, I think appropriately, to under the School of Education. Gary is leading that charge. So he's going to lead this meeting, but I'm certainly here to offer any support and explanation of the work we've done over the past 14 years or so.
And yes, my name is Ryan Wilson. I'm the program coordinator for the School of Education. I am the person that's in the communities, working with our students, working with the different schools, making sure they all know about our programming, as well as making sure I support the students while they're at St. Louis University with doing their school of undergrad and also graduate classes.
Thanks. And I know that we have 30 minutes, and our goal is to talk for about 15 of those to leave enough time for the board to ask questions and interact and make sure that we know that you know everything you can about St. Louis University sponsorship. So I'll get started, and I presume that if perhaps you can nod, Beth, if you see the slides in front of you. Are they there? Good, thank you. All right, I'm going to jump right in. So just a brief roadmap of the way I'm going to organize this presentation. I changed up the order of the questions a little bit so that the conversation could flow. Tell you a little bit about our charter office, the priority and the mission, and how that connects to St. Louis University's priority and mission. Talk a little bit about how we've sponsored to support success. How do we manage oversight and evaluation? I'll focus on number 4. I bold-faced it. I imagine if I were in your shoes, I'd want to know what makes us unique as a sponsor. Certainly you're talking to 2 other very well-qualified sponsors. So you're interested and we're interested in talking about why we think we're uniquely well-situated to partner with you. And finally, briefly talk about what long-term commitments SLU can offer, and then wrap up and answer some questions. So as many of you know, I'm sure, the St. Louis University is a Jesuit university guided by our social justice-oriented mission. Our motto is higher purpose, greater good. The language we use for our overarching vision in our School of Education is, and forgive me for reading this to you, inspired by the Jesuit conviction that the world is good and human beings can make it a better place for all to live and grow. Our School of Education educates, guides, and transforms individuals and communities through teaching, research, and community engagement. And I think all three of those come together here in this potential partnership. So how does this influence our sponsor work and how we seek out partners? We hope to sponsor and partner with schools that, of course, are serving students in low-income areas, offer choices to PK-12 students that they would not otherwise have. And of course, you do this as a charter school in Kansas City, and you do this by offering French immersion curricula that students could not find elsewhere. We are interested in finding partners who are supporting student access to higher education. And I know you're not there yet, but in a couple of years, you will be there. And we're excited about that possibility. Of course, we're interested in partnering with schools who, like us, pursue a social justice oriented mission. And finally, well, you need to desire a partnership with schools that are seeking us out, that are looking for some of the unique value that we can offer. These are the sorts of partners that we're seeking. Currently, of course, we're one of the 6 or so higher ed institutions in Missouri that sponsor charter schools. We've been a sponsor since around 2008. In 2020, sponsoring responsibilities, as Steve noted, moved into the School of Education where they belong. Currently, we only sponsor one public charter, City Garden Montessori School. In our lifetime, we've sponsored 2 others. At our high point, we sponsored 3. We are not in the business of building a huge sponsorship portfolio by any means. We want to develop a small handful of partners and provide active and very engaged support to that small handful of partners. And we have a lot of practice partnering with schools, period. We partner with lots of local schools. We are actively engaged in schools across the state in our community. We do this simply because we are a school of education, not only for schools we sponsor, but we work with public charter schools, district public schools, and Catholic schools alike. We're interested in working with and partnering with schools that are serving students in the cities and in the urban core, full stop. Please, by the way, I didn't mention this. I know you asked us to leave time at the end for questions. If you have any clarification questions or questions in the interim, please feel free to just ask, blurt it out right in the middle. There's no reason to wait. So in terms of oversight and evaluation, I will say that I know Robin quite well, and I suspect with oversight and evaluation, we might not be the best sponsor if that's all you're looking for. We think our partnership is really the unique thing we add. But with oversight and evaluation, Steve has a great deal of experience from the provost's office in doing that and doing that with other charters. And we have a strong relationship with Vicki Hughes over at UCM, and she's certainly interested in supporting us if you were to transfer over to us. Our general strategy is to co-create, of course, with the board and the school leader, a comprehensive set of performance goals that are thoughtfully developed and aligned, of course, with overall mission, and then just carefully measure your performance year after year against those goals. It's very straightforward. Annual site visits are standard. Ryan and I are constantly going across the state to work with schools across the state, so the proximity is not an issue at all. A good number of our education leadership students are in cohorts in Kansas City as well. So annual site visits are standard, and we hope to be involved even more than that. Again, we are only going to be partnering with a small handful of schools, so we're going to have the time and energy and the focus to devote to this small handful of schools. And finally, one thing that we think is important with respect to academic goals, our focus is not on point-in-time proficiency scores. Of course, you need to get those high scores to beat the standards that you set, and of course, we want to have higher scores than our peers in the surrounding district schools. But really, I think our focus is not only on where did kids end, because that's really heavily related to and reliant on where they started. We really want to encourage all of our schools to focus on academic growth. We want to use the DESE growth scores. Some of our researchers at SLU Prime, which is listed at the bottom there, and I can send you the link later if you wish. We've recently done a statewide school growth report where we translate the growth measures, make better sense of them, and put them out so school leaders can see how well their schools are growing, and limit this focus on just point-in-time proficiency scores. We think test scores matter, of course, but we think they matter when we're looking at growth rather than proficiency, and that's a real theme in how we're going to engage in our annual reviews and annual performance conversations with our schools. So what makes us unique? What's our comparative advantage? And again, if you are only looking for oversight and evaluation, I don't know that we're the folks to choose. I think, though, partnership is what we really add in a variety of ways. I think we're unique in what we offer as a school of education. I think we're unique in what we offer as a university. And I think we're unique in what we can offer to graduates of a French immersion school. And I'll talk through each of these in the slides that follow. First of all, we can bring all of the advantages of a school of education. You will have direct connection to education researchers. So our SLU Prime is our research office. So if you have research questions on a new math curriculum you're trying, or if you're wondering if this new strategy with regard to how you group your students, is that leading to better academic outcomes than what you were doing before, our researchers can help you ask those questions. And I think that makes us unique. You also will have a direct connection to excellent School of Education faculty for PD. And again, our faculty are very comfortable driving across the state to teach students in Kansas City and all over the state. So proximity isn't at all a challenge here. You'll have direct connection to our excellent faculty, some of whom are working on interesting stuff like equity of access to STEM curricula. We just hired a new fantastic faculty member who's engaged in that work. We've got a faculty member engaged in how to teach math in more exciting ways to young students to get them engaged. Faculty focused on human wellness and flourishing, and focused on culturally relevant pedagogy, advanced literacy, and everything else in between. So I think that's a real value we add. We know that what you at Académie Lafayette want to do even a better job of drawing students from across the socioeconomic spectrum and adding more racial diversity to your student body. We do have experience working with City Garden that faces a lot of the same challenges that I suspect you face. I suspect when you reach out into the community and try and convince parents that their kids should be pretty excited about being in a French immersion school, it's probably some of the same challenges City Garden faced when they tried to convince families that Montessori is a cool idea and is a fun idea and their kids are going to like that. So I think we can draw lessons from our experience that might be helpful. And finally, with our School of Education, something Ryan and I have been working on over the past 2 years, we have grow your own scholarships. So I suspect you're like a lot of other high schools, and one of your big concerns is bolstering your teacher pipeline. Well, we've been working with a lot of high schools in our region, even beyond, on working directly with the high schools to work to create grow your own programs. So we talk to the students who might be thinking about a career in education, and we have them visit the campus, talk to them about that. We visit them. And at the end of their senior year, above and beyond the already lucrative SLU financial aid, for students who want to enter our School of Education, we offer scholarships above and beyond that. We really want to encourage bright, talented, committed young people from schools in Missouri to get educated here and go back and teach at their home schools in Missouri, and specifically in the cities in Missouri, in St. Louis and Kansas City area. That is a real commitment of ours, and we've raised several $100,000 in scholarship funds for this Grow Your Own Teacher program. So we're excited to make it easier to smooth that path for young people to enter the School of Education, enter teaching, and find themselves right back in classrooms in our partner schools in St. Louis and Kansas City. What makes SLU unique? What makes the university unique? Well, of course, we'll offer support for visas for your teachers. Being affiliated with SLU will allow waiving of the cap on H-1B visas. I know that's important. you'll have direct connection, and we can figure out ways with our enrollment management to smooth the admission process to SLU. So it's kind of neat having a top 100 university in your Missouri backyard where students can matriculate quite easily. We'll have connection to all other resources SLU has to offer. The School of Education is going to be particularly interested in partnering with you, but we can connect you to social workers, with nurses in the School of Nursing, resources in law, et cetera. Connection to all of those resources. And finally, connection to relevant courses that are particularly relevant to you, such as French and International Relations, Business French, French Cinema, et cetera, courses that we can figure out ways to perhaps deliver those courses in ways that your students can get college credit. We can work on that as well. Finally, I think SLU makes a good fit because the experience of French students at SLU is particularly exciting. We have a study abroad program in Lyon. Students from your academy could start at the 3,000 or 4,000 level in French, of course. The French experience here at SLU extends beyond the classroom walls. Our faculty offer frequent cultural activities open to all levels, and we host a chapter of the National French Honor Society, Pi Delta. I guess I'm going to leave this up here for about 30 seconds. Not going to read it to you because I know you can read. This is a quote from a student from KC who's currently a senior majoring in French and International Studies at SLU. And now this student's a first-year master's student in our accelerated master's program. And of course, I mean, this student has nice things to say about SLU, right? Or else I wouldn't have put it in this presentation. And I'll also share this presentation with the board, and you could feel free to circulate it. But we're excited about these opportunities, which we hadn't even thought deeply about. We've been thinking much more about it over the past few weeks since this potential partnership has become a bit more serious. So we're excited about these possibilities as well. And I know we're getting toward the end of our 15 minutes. In terms of long-term commitment, I think our experience with City Garden evidences our long-term interest in working with charter schools in the state and our long-term reliability. We're a partner that's staying with them through thick and thin, and we're going to continue to do that. We're going to be hiring a full-time charter office director, and we haven't hired this person yet, but we're going to make the connection before the end of the academic year, pardon me, before the end of the calendar year. And the person we've got our eye on, who's interested in joining us, just has a great resume, a great portfolio of experience from starting her career teaching at charter schools to working in a state charter office to deal with exactly the work of regulation and the work of accountability. Then she went on to study for a PhD. Now she's leading a successful charter school in New Mexico, looking to get back to St. Louis. She's clicks the boxes in every single way. She's been connected to the work of charters in every way and been connected to the work of state bureaucracies. And as you know, trying to navigate DESE is not easy. So working with someone who has experience in doing that, it's going to be very helpful. Our administration, from the president, the provost, down to the dean, that's me, are committed to this important work. And we're going to continue to work with a small number of committed partners. We're not going to have a large portfolio that will dilute our ability to really focus. So briefly, just as a wrap up, thank you for sharing your time. The work you do is important. Your time is quite valuable. I appreciate your willingness to spend time with us and consider us as a partner. And I'll end just by highlighting why I think this is a particularly good fit and why we're really excited about this potential partnership. We think we're particularly well situated to partner with a school like yours with such a strong track record already. In other words, our focus will really be on partnership and support rather than on regulation, getting you started, making sure that you're compliant. I mean, of course, we're going to worry about those things, but we're going to be able, because you've got this track record, to worry about those things far less, which means we'll have the time and energy to focus on partnerships. And frankly, that's the unique advantage we bring. If you weren't interested in our partnerships, it would be better to go with the commissioner, someone else, I think. I think what we have learned from City Garden has direct bearing on the challenges you face. And I think we can serve as a central hub and work with each of you as you learn how to overcome some of these challenges of keeping your population diverse and improving upon the diversity of the students whom you serve. We know now you're not yet graduating seniors, but you're going to soon be graduating seniors. We are excited about the possibility that SLU, along with other top-notch universities around the country, we can then serve as a great in-state home for your graduates, and we can smooth that process. And we're excited about it. And finally, we're excited about the possibility to support teacher pipeline work for you. We want to help you by waiving the cap on H-1B visas, but we also want to help you by developing a grow your own pipeline. So one day, 4, 5, 6 years from now, your graduates can be first-year teachers in your school system. That's what we're excited for with several of our partners here in the region in St. Louis, and that's one of the things we'd be very excited to work with you. I think that's it. I hope I left a decent amount of time for questions, and I really appreciate your time.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gary and team. To our board members, what questions does that raise for you all?
Could you tell me on your Montessori school, is that a K-3, K-5, and how many students do you do?
We're at K-8 and they're growing. These days we're at about 250-ish. Steve, I don't know if am I close, but we're growing.
Higher than that, 270. And then this is the year that they've actually started expanding significantly. They added 60 students to the kindergarten. So they're going to be adding students throughout. Their goal is to be at, I think it's several hundred here in a couple of years. So they're going to be growing significantly, and they have eyes on a second campus as well as part of their long-term strategic planning.
Okay. So you had some other charters. Did they go someplace else, or what happened to them?
Yeah, I can take that, Gary, if you want, since I worked with them. So we also were the initial sponsor of the Grand Center Arts Academy, which is located just a couple of blocks down from SLU on Grand Boulevard here in downtown St. Louis. It was a strange setup from the start, though, because Grand Center Arts Academy is part of a broader network of charter schools called Confluence Schools here in St. Louis. And all of the other Confluence schools were sponsored originally by the University of Missouri at Rolla, and then eventually by Mizzou. So what you had was one board reporting to two different sponsors, depending on which school they were talking about. And frankly, it was a bad arrangement, right? The board needs to be able to, or the sponsor needs to have a certain kind of nature and kind of influence with that board, but then it's got this other sponsor on the other side to deal with. So it frankly was a bad arrangement. So what we did was we worked with Mizzou and DESE, and it was all very amicable. And we worked to transition our sponsorship out of that. Frankly, we were offered the opportunity to be the sponsor of the entire Confluence Academy, but that's a really big portfolio. It's not kind of what we were looking to do. I mean, they have like 5,000 students or something in their total portfolio with all their schools. So we opted instead to transition the sponsorship over to Mizzou, and that all worked out well. And that was several years ago. And then the third school was called Shearwater High School. It was started to assist students who had dropped out of high school, who were getting close to aging out of the system, many who had been incarcerated, many who were young parents. So a very high risk school. We ran it for 3 years, did not meet the outcomes that either the school set or that we set. And regretfully, we got to a position where we had to work with the board to shut the school down, and we did. We like to say we fulfilled the vision of the charter schools. They're, right. You can get them open, but you can also close them when need be, and we did.
Okay. So this would be your largest. Are you planning on, with what happened with Warrensburg, are you looking at any of the other schools?
There are a couple of the smaller UCM schools that we have meetings with, and one we have already reached out to and spoke to, and another one is coming up later this week.
Okay. So you might increase your portfolio this year.
We might, but it will never, as we said, that at some point we will, if we got to 4 or 5 partners, I think we would feel ourselves capped out. Again, we want to be able to give attention to partners and focus on partners that have strong fits. But yes, we are considering 2 or 3 others this year as well.
Just FYI, my son graduated from St. Louis U.
Oh, that's
And-
great.
in 2013, and he also went into a French class and took 2 classes of French. And I think they were at the 3,000 level. So anyway,
That's great.
I love the school. So, but that's,
Could you be in if you're considering other sort of schools as well, could you be in a position if all the schools you're in conversations with said, yes, we'd like to have you as a sponsor, would that be would you have to say no to some of them?
So the 2 we're thinking of are 2 Kansas City schools that are pretty small. And then there's a challenging situation, just to be frank. I mean, it's in the newspapers that the Arch School here in UMSL has dropped the sponsorship of Arch, and I know they're reaching out to local sponsors as well. I don't think there's any chance that we would beyond you, if you were to partner with us, I don't think there's any chance we would add more than 1 or 2. That would be as many as we would want to do in year 1. In year 1 of adding new schools, that is.
you've been doing this since 2008. Okay.
Yeah, City Garden opened in the fall of 2008. Grand Center, at that time, we also had already signed the contract and we're working on the development of Grand Center Arts Academy. It took a couple of years. They had a significant board turnover, and it took a couple of years before that actually got started. It might have been 2010 or 2011 when that school opened. But generally speaking, we've been doing this for a while. Yeah.
You talk about looking for schools that have the right fit. What are those criteria really that you're looking at? I realize each school is unique, but what are some of the general criteria to help you know if it's a fit?
Well, so in this case, so in terms of, I think we have might have a different metric for starting new schools versus existing schools. But so with existing schools, we're thinking of, are there some reason, is there something unique about the connection with SLU, something particularly mutually beneficial? Are there ways we can support the school and there are ways we benefit? And as I outlined in the presentation, I think with Académie Lafayette, there are a variety of ways that this is valuable for each of us. With considering some of the other schools that are looking for a sponsor to move to, are they serving kids who don't have a lot of other choices? Would it be consistent with our social justice mission? Are they serving student enrollments that are from underrepresented backgrounds who have been traditionally underserved by the educational system? In terms of starting a new school, for example, I think our hope is to have a small portfolio of 3 to 5 schools, and then we're in the position where if a really clever, really interesting school seeks a sponsor here in the region or in Kansas City that isn't open yet, but needs a sponsor to get moving, we can be there to support that school if they don't have another option. So you might have heard there's this health sciences school that's considering seeking a sponsor that could be interesting to us down the road. It would be a neat fit with SLU Hospital, et cetera. And is trying to get more underrepresented students into healthcare fields. Those are just examples, but you're right, it is a case-by-case basis, but we think about connection to our mission as a higher ed institution, connection to our mission as a social justice-oriented Jesuit institution. Those are some of the things we'd be thinking about. Does that help?
Yeah, very much. And I was taught by Jesuits at Rockhurst.
Right. I'm a
Right.
big fan of Rockhurst.
Mhm.
In the interest of time, we probably need to wrap up. Gary, I did see the example accountability document that you shared. I sent that out to the rest of our board as well. So we'll take a look at those after and definitely follow up if there were any additional questions that our board has. And I don't know if you heard me say we plan to have a discussion with the full board or at our next regularly scheduled meeting in November, with taking a vote on which sponsor we'd like to move forward with in December. So that's our timeline moving forward.
Great. We're grateful for the time you gave us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Excellent. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Night. All right, for our final presentation, Charnissa, thank you for your patience and listening in to our other sponsors, but we are excited to now get to hear from you.
Well, good evening. My name, for those I have not had the opportunity to meet, my name is Charnissa Holliday Scott. I am the Director of Education Systems for Kansas City Public Schools. I serve as the charter school sponsor. I was brought on particularly for this work. So I do have a presentation for this evening. I will share my screen. So that way I can just share a little bit about me and also about this work at Kansas City Public Schools. First of all, we are probably the newest consistent sponsor. We're not new to charter schools, but the newest consistent sponsor in that I've actually been reapproved as a sponsor, or the Kansas City Public Schools has been reapproved as a sponsor since 2015. However, that was not the start of Kansas City's work with charter schools. Its initial work came in the late 90s with Westport Edison. For those of you, I know I'm dating myself, but with the beginning of charter schools here in Kansas City, several of the charter schools actually started with Edison as a management company. One thing we've learned over time is that sometimes schools with management companies don't always work out well. Actually, all of the charter schools that started with Edison as management companies here in the area, there are some that are still open. Everyone separated from Edison. Kansas City Public Schools did the same. So there was a separation from Edison. Like I said, we have been reapproved as a sponsor since 2015. We actually had a charter school that started from the ground up. So it was a new start charter school, and that was Kansas City Neighborhood Academy, which began, and they closed recently. Actually, the board of Kansas City Neighborhood Academy made a decision to close its school at the same time that I was brought on to Kansas City Public Schools. So while I am new to Kansas City Public Schools since April 2019, I am not new to charter schools or the charter world. For those of you who may remember me, I actually served as legal counsel to a number of charter schools in the area for a number of years. My initial background actually is in education, focusing on exceptional education and gifted education. And then, like I said, I went to law school, practiced in private practice for a number of years. A large body of my work, while civil litigation defense was part of my work, a huge part of my work was education law. So I assisted a number of charter schools with their charter school applications, with governance, with policy development. I attended board meetings. I also assisted some of the charter leaders with their day-to-day operations. So I am definitely not unfamiliar with the charter school setting. Also, I had served on the Missouri Public Charter School Association Board since 2013. I just recently termed off, and actually one of your board members termed on to take my place. That is Mr. John Otto. So he just took my place on the board. So I'm excited to see that. But this work is passionate. Actually, education is a passion for me. And so when Kansas City reached out and said it really wants to be intentional about its charter school sponsorship, but also be intentional about its relationship with charter schools, I think the belief was they thought I would be that person to help be able to bridge that gap and to mend those fences. And that really has been a lot of my work since I have come. Also during that time when I was transitioning to Kansas City, that was the same year that the University of Missouri, Kansas City made a decision to no longer sponsor a school. So with that decision, Allen Village was one of the schools in a very similar position as you are in now. They needed to make a decision about a sponsor. And they made the decision to, in a sense, follow me. I think it's because I already had a relationship with the school. I had worked with them for a number of years. So I was very familiar about their school culture, about their board, about what their ideas and their goals were for the future of their charter school. And so they did transfer to Kansas City Public Schools in 2019. I just led them through their expedited renewal last March in 2021, which was a successful renewal. Like I said, it was expedited, and that was based on their work, on their hard work. And so just like Académie Lafayette, you too had an expedited renewal. When you had your renewal, you were, however, renewed for 10 years. So that is exciting to see. Currently, right now, Kansas City did make the decision when the University of Central Missouri decided that it would no longer sponsor. The decision was made that we would be open to accept any of the charter schools from UCM should they desire to come to us. And we know that sometimes that's, there's a lot of quality sponsors out there. However, we wanted to be open because we are the sponsor that is here locally. It has been very easy with the relationship between Allen Village and I. One, because should they need anything, there's someone that can either get to the school immediately or someone who's just a phone call away. And that has been extremely helpful, especially during this time of the pandemic. Being a thought partner for them and their board as they developed COVID policies. They are a school that decided they wanted a more active sponsor. In each school, I do allow for them to make that decision as to how active they want a sponsor to be. Currently, I am working with Crossroads Charter School. They're one of the University of Central Missouri schools that has also made a decision that they would like to come to Kansas City Public Schools. So currently, I am working with them on their charter agreement, and hopefully their agreement will go before our board in November. The reason why the charter agreement goes before the board rather than in the commission the other way around was their board voted. Under Missouri statute, especially for school districts, the board approves all contracts. So because the charter agreement would be a new contract, so should Académie Lafayette decide to come to Kansas City Public Schools, I would need to take your contract before the Board of Education at Kansas City Public Schools. When it comes to our commitment to sponsorship, Kansas City Public Schools is committed to the charter sponsorship work. First of all, Kansas City is committed to all the students in its boundaries, and that is by exploring any and all opportunities that may offer an enhanced educational experience, especially for our children that are living within the district boundaries. So that is not just a commitment to just those KCPS students who are attending KCPS schools, but it's to all the students in the boundaries, because we have learned over time, our students are mobile. They move a lot within the district. They move between charter and district. They move from outside of the district to inside the boundaries. And so we've learned that in this process, building a relationship with the charter partners or the charter schools in this boundary is a way for all students to be successful. So there is commitment here. Also, one of the key things that we do, we are committed to supporting and advancing the purposes of Missouri Charter School law and quality sponsorship practices. We do believe that if all of us are working together and trying to do the best we can, who wins are the students and families. And ultimately, we know that this is a choice system, that our families have the opportunity to make choice. And we want to make sure that the choices available are quality choices. So whether that choice is a Kansas City public school or a charter school, the district is committed in this work. Also, our commitment is not just what I would like to call lip service. We do put that in action. So that commitment to Kansas City sponsorship came out of a recommitment to the sponsorship, came out of a study that was done, which was the system analysis first. And that was looking at our system. How can we, one, be a better partner in our system with the charter schools, but also how can we look at opportunities and efficiencies in our system? And so out of that study was the establishment of the Office of Education Collaboration, which is my office. So that's how I stem out of this. So out of my office, I work with charter schools, whether they're sponsored by us or not, on collaborative opportunities that we offer and that they offer. So we have partnered in a number of areas with some of the area charter schools without even having to be sponsored by them. Also, in putting that to action is that I present through board presentations to the public. So we continue to re-emphasize and reiterate that commitment through my public presentations, as well as by the votes of the board. Like I said, we are in the process of working with Crossroads to add to our portfolio. So right now, the only school in our portfolio is Allen Village School. However, I do provide updates to the board regarding the school. The board voted unanimously regarding the renewal of Allen Village School. I know sometimes that there may be questions as to, well, how involved is the board in your charter school sponsorship? And to be honest, they're really not involved until I make the presentation. That is one of the key things that we focus on, and especially out of my office, it is the respect for charter school autonomy. In understanding that every charter school is different, and definitely as legal counsel, I knew that firsthand because I'm working with so many different schools. There were different themes, there were different priorities, there were different focal points as far as the population of students that were trying to be reached by the particular school. But it is to respect the charter school's autonomy. And how I continue to do that is I allow the charter school, like I said, to tell me how involved do they want a sponsor to be. And the reason why I say that is I am responsible for the accountability and the evaluation pieces. But some schools desire a more support role. And whether that is support role in the areas of professional development, whether that is in the area of looking at services that may be needed, or whether that is a thought partner, the school shares with me what their priorities. We also build their performance agreement together. So when it came time for Allen Village's renewal, we actually sat as a team to develop their goals. So they provided input, we agreed upon those goals, and that is how we established their performance contract. Also, one of the key pieces to continue that commitment is maintaining LEA status. That has been a question that has been asked of me several times during this process. I have actually met with all of the University of Central Missouri schools, all the school leaders, the ones that are looking for a sponsor. I am now starting to meet with their boards. So, but that has been a question several have asked me. What happens with the LEA status? Your LEA status remains intact. That does not change. Just what you did with UCM, and I have spoken with Dr. Hughes on a number of occasions, and just out of candor, I have actually done work for Dr. Hughes in a previous life. So I've had a relationship with her, and I do find that our sponsorship styles are very much similar as far as being able to support our schools and wanting to see our schools be the best that they can be. And however we can help them do that is what we want to do. So that is maintaining your LEA status. That does not change. When Allen Village moved from University of Missouri, Kansas City, their LEA status, nothing changed, and they did not give up their autonomy in coming to Kansas City Public Schools. Actually, for a tidbit of information, nationwide, over 90% of charter schools in the United States are actually sponsored or authorized by school districts. It is actually, state of Missouri is one of the oddities as far as how sponsorship works. I am the only school district that actually sponsors a charter school. However, if you travel outside of Missouri, the majority of the charter schools are actually sponsored by their local school districts. And part of it is to allow for a greater partnership between the district and the charter school. And it also allows for an opportunity to be a little more efficient in what we can do. So if we are able to move less dollars out of operating, whereas building partnerships and bridges into more instruction, that actually benefits the charter school as well as the school district. So our responsibility is oversight, evaluation, and for me, I also add support. That is a responsibility of mine. So we just don't do oversight and evaluation. While we are required, like the statute that is on your screen says, we are responsible as any other sponsor to make sure that we cover those key areas and looking at governance, finances, academics, and compliance with the law. So we do have that oversight piece. We also have our evaluation process. And our evaluation process is not a one point in time evaluation process. It is looking at your school over the period of time. So looking at it over the year. So we will have site visits. There's document review. What I don't ask for a school to do is to create a document that does not exist in order for me to evaluate. I look at what you already produce and what you already have. So for example, when you're completing the charter school accountability checklist, and it is required for the sponsor to verify whether the accountability is taking place. I look at what you already have and what you're already doing. I review your website, I review your documentation, and that helps me confirm your accountability with that model. And then I sign the accountability checklist if there are no questions. If there are questions, then what I do is I set up a meeting with the school leader or maybe with the board, depending on the person I'm working with. To be honest, I work with both. I work with the board and the school leader because I do know the school leader's doing the day-to-day. The board is the governance. So I want a relationship with actually both entities to make sure that we're all working in concert together. So looking at that, we would meet, discuss any kind of questions that may arise, but then also be able to brainstorm how do we, if something is out of compliance, how do we get it into compliance? And what is that time frame that it'll take us to get there? And then being able to work through that process. I do not believe in a gotcha process. I want you to be successful. I want you to continue to be successful. Also, we look at data review. I do have a wonderful data team that I have access to. They have been fabulous when it comes to compiling data, doing charts for me, helping me do an analysis of data. I think that is one luxury that I do have being at a school district is I do have access to additional resources. So while my office is small, I do have an admin. I also have access to every team that is here. And then I also have access to external resources should I need those resources. I also will attend your board meetings. And it's not every one, but I at least like to attend 4 a year. If you are a school that has a board meeting every month, which every charter school is not like that. Some charter schools have meetings every other month. So depending on your school and having a meeting every month, I would like to at least attend 4. I always like to attend your December meeting because that is your meeting where your audit does come out, and being able to look rather than not being at the meeting and then saying, hey, I want to meet with you about your audit. I just think that we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone by being present in that meeting. So then if there are any questions regarding the audit or any strategies your team would like to discuss with me, we can discuss those because we've all heard the same thing. Also, I would do interviews. That would be part of the site visit, would be interviews with your staff, interviews with your board, and then also looking at best practices. So that's where we see our oversight and evaluation and support process. There are some benefits being with Kansas City Public Schools, or at least I perceive there's some benefits for your school. Should Académie Lafayette want to come with us, you are joining someone who does have an experienced background in not just the charter sector and school operations, but also in charter law and charter accountability. Also, you would join someone who would provide a support in addition to accountability. Also, professional development opportunities. What I do say about the professional development opportunities and even the opportunities for networking, I extend those to the charter school. However, you are not required to participate. And the reason why I say that is there may not be a need in a particular area. So I may send a lot of information about opportunities for professional development, whether that is in the area of special education, whether that's in the area of operations, whether that's in the area of curriculum development. You may be in a place where you're saying, okay, Sharna, so this is great, but we may not need this at this time. And I completely respect that. But I always want to be able to provide you with the information so that you know it is there. There's also potential opportunities to collaborate around academic services, around operational services, and then also consultation and support in regarding obtaining visas. Kansas City Public Schools is also an entity that does not have the cap on getting teachers. Quite frankly, we have a number of teachers who come from foreign countries. So we do have a team in human resources that actually helps process those visas and make sure that everything is in place for those teachers to come here. There are 2 foreign language schools, and then they're here in Kansas City Public Schools. That is Carver Dual Language, and then also there's Foreign Language Academy. And then there's a number of high schools that offer a foreign language class. So there is the opportunity that should that be a support you're looking for, we are able to help with that. There are also opportunities for contracted services. Like I said, the services may be offered or discussed, but there is no requirement to participate in them. Some of the contracted services we actually engage in with some of the charter schools that are not sponsored by us. For example, we provide the child nutrition services and compliance pieces for 2 charter schools that are here locally. That was an area of concern for them. They needed, first it started off as consulting because they wanted to increase their compliance in that area. And then it has grown to a point where they just contract their food, child nutrition services through us. Also, we have a number of charter schools that have contracted with us through our career and technical services at Manual Tech. So there are students who attend there. Now, I admit those schools that are sponsored by KCPS they do get a better rate than those schools that are not, but it is still a reasonable price for those schools that are not sponsored by us, because they would then have to transport their students out of district in order to attend a career and technical school. We also have partnered with charter schools around transportation services. We have also offered consultation with financial services. That is also an opportunity for those that are sponsored by us, that if you need to pick up the phone and say, hey, I have a finance question, or can someone help me navigate through this application? We have staff that are able to help you with those things. There have been times where the CFO of Allen Village has just called up the CFO of Kansas City Public Schools and said, okay, I have a couple of questions. Can you answer these? So there is an opportunity that you're not outside on your own, alone, without a counterpart to communicate with. Also, we offer Kansas City Virtual Academy. There is a discussion we're looking at right now. We're negotiating health insurance. That's been a couple of questions. I know that we have talked about with Allen Village is there a way to negotiate health insurance? So we're actually doing that research at this time. So there are opportunities. Anytime there is a contract service, there is, like I said, no requirement for the school to engage in a contracted service with us. The only true agreement we would have would be our charter performance agreement. So therefore, any contracted service will have a separate agreement. So it is not governed by the performance agreement or the charter contract. So it will be particular to the particular service that is wanting to be contracted. So that is a little bit about Kansas City Public Schools and our sponsorship and our work at this point. I wanted to say thank you for your time, but I wanted to give you an opportunity if you had a question. I know I'm cutting close on time, but if you had any questions, please share.
Great.
How big's Allen Village?
It has over 500 students. It is pre-K through 12.
In Crossroads?
Crossroads is, I think, about 800 students.
And it's K through 12 too.
Yes.
And you've been there since 2019.
Yes.
Question.
And I will definitely share this presentation with Ms. McCarthy for her to share with the board.
Is there a way we could look at a contract or something to that effect, what you're looking for? Or do you make, how do you do that?
Sure. I can share Allen Village's contract with you so you can have an idea. Like I do say that as far as the performance goals, one of the things that we did when Allen Village transferred to us at the time, we accepted the performance contract that they had already negotiated and worked out with the University of Missouri, Kansas City, because they were so close to renewal. I did not want to change the goals that they had been working on because they had spent the last 4 years working on particular goals. So I wanted to respect that. So we did do our contract where I accepted those performance goals. And then for their newest contract, we worked on the goals together to establish their next term.
Okay.
How many people do you have on your staff?
My personal staff is small. Like I said, it's an admin and I, just to be candid, I sit in legal services at KCPS. So I also have access to everyone, to be honest. So my staff they don't directly report to me, but my staff gets expanded with our budget and finance department, our human resources department, our data and research department. When I call on them and there are certain reports that we need or certain things that we need done, I have all of those resources available to me. So that is the luxury that while I am in the process at looking at hiring 1 to 2 more staff members, and quite honestly, it is contingent upon this process.
Mm-hmm.
We did make that commitment. I've already had discussions with potential staff members. I'm very pleased with, and we've also had interest, which is interesting. So I guess when it came up that Kansas City was interested in sponsorship, we did have a few calls and say, hey, KCPS, we would love to join your team if you're interested in sponsoring the schools. So, which excites me because each person that I've spoken to at this point has a strong background in charter schools, in charter school work, in the work of DESE, in interaction. So I do think if this grows and those that are remaining decide to come to us, we would have a great bench and a great team. I'm actually teasing myself and calling it the dream team, so I'm pretty excited about it. But right now, as far as employed in my department, it's me, my admin.
Okay. And then your department, your division, whatever, I'm not sure how it's, but then you report into legal or do you report into finance? Where do you?
I actually report to the chief legal counsel.
Okay.
That is because I'm a licensed attorney.
Okay.
And then also our chief legal counsel actually used to be the legal counsel at DESE, the general counsel at DESE.
Okay.
And he's very familiar with charter school work, charter school law, charter school compliance. And then he reports directly to Dr. Bedell.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, of course.
And I'm curious, how much does board turnover impact your ability to do your work? Because I know you never know who your board will be and whether they are sort of supportive or not. There's obviously a lot of tensions between charter and district, which I really appreciate the district's interest in partnering with schools and really thinking about how we can work together. So I love the direction that the district is going. I'm just curious how much that board turnover impacts your ability to be successful.
Well, I've only experienced one change. So I've experienced one election since I've been there or been here. And actually, well, to be honest, they're excited about the opportunity to sponsor more schools. Unfortunately, I get that call of, are there more schools coming to us? So I'm just thinking, okay, they're watching this as well, because of course they won't know until I actually come to them with an agreement. But they are watching this process. I think, I'm not sure if the board will change. Part of what they did do is, my position is in policy. So this work is, they actually drafted a school board policy about this work and about this commitment in hopes that it grows past a particular board or a particular superintendent. So charter schools with sponsorship actually started before Dr. Bedell, and the intent is to continue past Dr. Bedell. Actually, with Crossroads coming on, they are anticipated to have a 10-year renewal. And that is, should they qualify for that, it looks like they are, that will be the renewal that they will get, is a 10-year renewal. So we do know that we're committed to this work, that it's not a tomorrow or a couple of years from now, but it is really being committed to this work for the long haul. Because we do know when you sponsor quality schools, just like Académie Lafayette, I think you have about 7 years left on your renewal, on your current term. So there is a commitment there.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you again for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. It was great to hear a little bit more about how the district sort of envisions sponsoring schools and how that has looked in the past. So we greatly appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
You too. All right. I think any other final questions? As we talked about, we'll send the recording out to the other board members. We'll ask them to watch it prior to our November board meeting, where we can sort of discuss what we heard and thoughts on how we would like to move forward, taking the official vote then in December, giving some time to think about it.
Yeah. I wonder how we can make sure people listen to all this and stuff. So.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's such a huge decision that I'm hopeful that everyone, yes, will take the time. It's not too long to watch it before our next board meeting.
Okay.
All right.
And then you're gonna, at the next board meeting, put time away so that we can have questions or give points of view, or
I mean, I think give points of view based on what we heard. What are our priorities that we're looking for in a sponsor, and what do we think is best? So sharing opinions based on what we've seen from the 3 charter options, really sharing opinions and surfacing, are there other questions that we don't feel like we got answered? Because there will be sort of those documents that each of them said that we'll look through. So 1, sharing opinions, and 2, identifying, are there additional questions that we then need to go find the answers to prior to voting on it.
Okay.
All right. Wonderful. Well, thank you all for your time. I think with that,